bit?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. All right. So in photosynthesis, the plant is going to take in some carbon dioxide and some water, and it's going to produce some sugar and some oxygen. So here's that carbohydrate. And we're not going to worry about how this thing occurs. It doesn't happen in just one equation like this. It's actually 200 different chemical reactions that occur. And it gets pretty complex. So we're not going to deal with it. But just understand that the carbon for the sugar came from the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That's going to be important for our next lab, so make sure you get that. This carbon atoms have to come from someplace. A plant can't just magically make sugar. It has to have materials for making the sugar. So it has to have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and the carbon comes from the sugar. And then it can get the hydrogen and the oxygen from some carbon dioxide and water. All right? So that's where it comes from. And then in the process, some oxygen, the oxygen from the water is given off. And that's good, because we're going to need it to breathe. Okay. So there's photosynthesis. Now let's take a look at cellular respiration. We're going to take that sugar and eat it, C6H12O6, so we're going to eat that sugar. And we're going to break it apart, but in order to break it apart to get the oxygen, or to get the energy out of it, we need to add some oxygen. And in the process, we're going to, if we take this glucose apart, and we can't destroy the atoms, they have to go someplace, they become carbon dioxide. Now we've got some hydrogen left over too. We suppose it's going to end up being. Not hydrogen gas. That would be dangerous because it's explosive. You hate to be walking around with what? Right? What? Yeah, good. They're opposites of each other. Exactly. Now keep in mind again that each of these is more than 100 or 200 reactions, and they're not the same reactions. But you know, it's kind of like a novel. If you read a novel, I could ask you to write a one-page summary of the novel, and you could do a good job of summarizing the whole novel in one page. But the one page is really only a fraction of what really went on in the novel. Nevertheless, it's a good summary of it. That's what you have here. This is a summary of something that's much, much more complex. And this is a summary of all of the equations that really are involved. We can summarize it all in this.
Yeah, what was that cellular?
That cellular respiration is this photosynthesis. Green for plants is photosynthesis. Red for what? Us. Okay. So, a couple of things to notice here. Notice that the carbon dioxide comes out of the air for plants. Where does the water come from for plants? Where do they get their water from? Rain, out of the ground. So they take those two together and they can make sugar. The whole thing. It's just a wonderful creation of God. So he gave plants this ability to make this sugar. By the way, where does this occur? In the Najas grass, where does it occur? In the chloroplasts. All right, that's the only place on Earth that this can happen. In chloroplasts. All right, so they make sugar. And what happens to the oxygen that plants give off then? Where does it go? Into the air. And we saw it happening in our little test tubes. We didn't get very much oxygen being produced, but that plant would have just bubbled oxygen out into the air. And that's where we get the oxygen we breathe. That's the only place it comes from. It keeps coming back from plants. The plants are good at producing oxygen. All right, now we eat this sugar. So here it is, we eat it. Where do we get the oxygen from? To break this down, where does it come from? Plants, right? We breathe it out of the air, it came from plants. What do we give off? Carbon dioxide, we breathe it out. See, that was the yeast. doing this. The yeast is like us. The yeast is, it's not an animal, but it's not a green plant either. So this was a yeast giving off carbon dioxide. And lots of it. And it gives off water. All right. So yeah, whoever noticed that, I think it was Morris, and yeah, these are the flip of each other, the opposites of each other. And they go round and round, and God created these to keep the world going as far as living things. They depend on each other. This needs something from here, doesn't it? What's used over here comes from over here, and what's given off over here is used over here. So they depend on each other. All right. Now, there's one thing, though, that we didn't add to this yet, and that is this. ATP. So cellular respiration also makes ATP. And I don't want to get too involved in that. I just want you to know this, that when we move our muscles, we don't directly take a sugar molecule apart to do it. We actually use an ATP. So right now, your cells are making ATP and kind of storing it up. They can't store a lot of it, but it's there so that when you need to move a muscle, it's ready to go. It takes a little while to break the sugar molecule apart. This can deliver energy just like that. So we take the energy from that glucose and we stick it in here first. And so we have a little bit of a storehouse of ATP in our cells. And as we need to do something that requires energy, it's right there. Here's the rest of it. All right. Everybody get this? Make sense? All right. Now, our next lab is going to take both of these and put them together. And I need to go get something I forgot.
You're not. I'm not even kidding.
Really?
Yeah. Not even.
Yeah, dude, I'm looking right at it.
Says that they're not there. Look, those idiot.
All right. So at the beginning of the semester, or no, several weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, I was thinking ahead, knowing that we wanted to do some experiments with photosynthesis, and I wanted to do some with algae. And so I bought some algae. It's kind of hard to find algae this time of year because it's frozen. So I bought some, and then I bought some growth media along with it. That said, it was guaranteed to grow a really, really dense colony of little microscopic single-celled algae. This is chlorella. They're really, really tiny one-celled algae plants. And so I put them in this growth media, and I've had them under the grow lights now for like 3 weeks. And I would not call that a luxuriant growth of algae. They're pretty disappointing. And then I got to thinking, hey, there's got to be a limiting factor in here, right? Remember back in ecology, limiting factor. Something in this environment is limiting the population growth of this algae. Well, what does algae need? It's a plant. What does it need to grow? Sunlight? Good. I gave it tons. What else? Good. What else is a plant? Think of anything. Think of your garden. No, they make oxygen.
CO2.
Okay, they need carbon dioxide. Very good. What else do they need? Water. They got plenty of that. Well, they need nutrients, right? Fertilizer. But that's what they're growing in, a nutrient solution. So I'm thinking, maybe carbon dioxide is the limiting factor here. And you know why? That's not far-fetched, because are there any animals in there giving off carbon dioxide? No. So maybe they ran out. So why don't we do something like this? Why don't we take that little yeast apparatus that we made, and instead of having that 300 milliliter bottle full of just water, let's put algae water in there and bubble carbon dioxide through it. Now it's going to get lots of carbon dioxide. And so let's do two of them. Let's take one where we put this in, but don't bubble carbon dioxide through. Take another one with this in, where we do bubble carbon dioxide through. Put them both under the lights and see if there's a growth rate difference. Sound like fun? All right, good. And that's why I wanted you to do the sugar thing yesterday. It's 10 grams of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. And sugar's not real expensive, but if we have to use 10 grams all the time, that's a lot. So I was thinking, well, can we use less than 10 grams? And it seems like 3 grams delivers an awful lot of carbon dioxide. We could probably go down to 1 gram and still get quite a bit. But I think we'll go with 3 grams. And what we'll probably have to do is feed our yeast every day. 3 grams of sugar a day. Or maybe we'll go 1 gram a day. And try this for a week or two. Just keep feeding the yeast. And as long as it keeps bubbling, we know it's still alive. Eventually yeast dies, but as long as you feed it, it should be good. And so we'll just keep feeding these things every day for a week and see if there's a difference in both. Okay, good, excellent. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go back to the lab and we're going to try to redesign our apparatus to see how this might work. Okay, you can hit the red button. See you guys. We're done.
Bye.
What, Tyler?
Bye.